Everyone, thank you for coming to watch. I've got you guys an update on a big severe weather event that we've got to talk about today. All right, we're about to see a big time tornado threat as pretty similar to what we saw yesterday. We've kind of had this train of storms, a slow moving line of storms that's just continued to reproduce and reproduce, but we've got to talk about what I think is going to be the last major day of severe weather for quite a while. That's going to be kind of just evolving from this big time storm that system that we have to talk about. So I've got all the details coming right up. Right. So thank you for joining me here on this Wednesday afternoon. We have a lot to talk about in this videos. We're going to go over all the information, the whole breakdown on this big time severe weather setup that we've got across the north central plains and the upper Midwest today. We also have to talk about a big time cold air mass that's going to be dropping from Canada into the United States. That's going to bring relief from all the heat and humidity for millions of Americans. That's going to be one of the more happy and brighter subjects of the video. But if you want to just watch that, then skip to the end. But we're going to start out here, take a look at your current satellite. As you can see, we've got pretty big storm system kind of swirling its way throughout sections of the north central plains. As you can see, it is negatively tilted. We've got a pretty nice trough right here, low pressure center. Over here, you got that nice comma shape. You're going to get storms that are going to start to fire across this line. You can already see some activity starting to pick up. All these, clouds are starting to form here. When you see the breaking in the clouds, that means that there's instability beginning to grow. So along this line, you're going to start to see some tornadic activity begin to kind of take shape, and we're gonna start to see some tornadic storms go into sections of Minnesota and obviously surrounding areas as well. But big time setup, very large line of storms. All these clouds that you're seeing here, this is the beginning, the formation of some storms. Look over here in Texas, near the Panhandle. Look how in the past few minutes we've actually gotten some big time convection. So it seems to me like we're gonna get a line of storms that's gonna be so big, and it's gonna be all the way like this. It's going to stretch from north to south. So this is a very healthy storm. All right, very compact, very strong storm. We've been talking about the same one for a few days now. So that's what's really causing all of our trouble. You can see we've got a pretty nice moisture pool. You can see with all this just the cloudiness here from the Gulf Coast. And this is all kind of just showing that we're getting a pretty big moisture pull into the core of the system. That's kind of starting to fire off these storms here that are that you can see here in the central plains. All right, so you've got cold, dry air coming in on the backside from Canada, and this is all kind of just coming together to create this unstable environment with some activity starting to pick up there across the central plains. Elsewhere, you could say we have some, pretty mild conditions. The West has been super dry lately, still have very dry conditions. Obviously, no rain in sight, big time wildfire concerns with that because you do have the gusty winds that have been kind of filtering into this storm system. So when you put together the dry and gusty conditions, you definitely get a fire risk. It has been a little bit cooler, though, I will say, for some of these mountainous regions. I know we actually did have a freeze warning. I forgot exactly where. I think it was in Oregon. We had freeze warnings, so it has been noticeably cooler, but still dry and in some areas hot conditions. So just be aware that there is a somewhat of a elevated fire risk. From the northeast, you can see we got a little bit of cloudiness over here. Some lingering showers and storms are definitely possible today. I really doubt it though. So a little bit cooler than what we saw yesterday. Obviously, we saw near record-breaking heat yesterday. It's about time when we start cooling down. We're getting we're approaching the first few days of September. So when you're in the 90s, I know I was in the 90s yesterday, and I'm out here in Long Island. We're supposed to be in the mid to lower 80s. We were up to 92 yesterday, so very, very above average heat that we've got over there. But that's pretty much the entire setup that you've got as far as today goes. And then obviously we'll see most of that cooler and drier air kind of filter in this storm system and kind of just push it off to the east. So we take a look here at the National Weather Service. We're taking a look here at their homepage for our alerts. So as you can see, what we've got going on is we do have a flood watch here going out for sections of northern Minnesota. This is out for basically just the entire round of storms that we've been talking about. I know I just mentioned earlier in the video how we've been talking about just round after round of storms in this pretty similar area It's almost the exact same area that's just been battered by heavy rainfall and storms. Well, we do have a flood watch out ahead of this line of storms that's going to be impacting Minnesota. You can see in that green shade. Um, that's going out for sections of northern Minnesota, a little bit farther off to the Great Lakes region, but definitely very concerning with those, with the flooding potential with that. Another thing to make mention of is we do have some heat advisories, as you can see in the orange shade, going out for sections of eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia, sections of Mississippi, Alabama, and then you've got sections of the Ohio Valley, just southern Ohio. You got western West Virginia, St. Louis metro area, all in that heat advisory. We're still talking about that above average heat because remember, you still have the dome of heat that's kind of been stretching across this region, and the cold front is still trying to blast its way off to the east. So this is once again the setup that we're talking about. You're gonna get storms are gonna build off of this tension that's building up between a big time kind of heat dome, if you will, and also the strong, cooler, and drier air that's coming on the backside. This is the entire setup that we've got for the country. So obviously, where the heat is, that's where we're going to have those heat advisories. So we still do have some above average temperatures out there. So please do be careful if you are under the gun for excessive heat. But as you can see, we also do have another flood watch going out for sections of northern Virginia. You got sections of western Maryland into sections of southern and central PA. Once again, we have been talking about some pretty active storm activity out there, so that's why we do have that flood watch out there. So please also be careful out there. If you're encounter flooded roads, turn around, don't drown. And also feel free to report flooded roads. It's very helpful to the National Weather Service and just all these weather people just to know what's going on out there. So once again, just stay safe out there. But that's pretty much all we got for our alert. So we're gonna move on here to the NAM 3 cam model. We're talking about the breakdown of this big time event that we've got unfolding across sections of the northern plains and the upper Midwest. We're going to talk about what these storms are going to look like and where and what areas these storms are going to end up impacting. All right, so starting out at about 2 p.m., about an hour earlier than the time of recording this video, you can see we did have initiation. We had storm initiation across sections of northeastern Nebraska, southeastern South Dakota. As you can see, these showers and thunderstorms are, by 2 p.m. they were beginning to fire across the region. And fast forward to now, I haven't checked radar in a while, but these storms are just going to continue to grow. And as you can see, already on the NAM, the 12Z NAM had these storms already getting pretty strong by the time we got to about 3 p.m., which was about 20 minutes ago. So definitely a big potential for some strong severe storms, even for some areas already by 3 p.m. across sections of western Minnesota. As you can see, we already have what seems to be a little line of storms shown by the NAM. This could definitely end up producing some 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Very possible with that. We got a big cluster of storms that almost looks like the beginning of your line that's starting to form out here in Nebraska. And look, you see these little bubbly thunderstorm-looking things? These are supercells. So the fact that you're getting supercells down here in Nebraska means that they're going to be heading in this direction. So you need to look in this area for a favorable environment to give you more of a higher tornado threat. So if you're going to get supercells in Nebraska, then they're going to start to move into sections of western Iowa. You're going to get supercells potentially into southern Minnesota. That could certainly increase the tornado threat because we'll look later. The Cape levels out here are very high, and actually the highest of Cape levels are right in the path of what could be some supercells. So I'd really be careful if you're out here in northern Iowa, sections of southern Minnesota, and obviously into northern Minnesota. I think that if I were the SPC, I would actually I would actually expand their 2% risk. I really do think that Iowa is going to have a pretty good shot at seeing some tornadoes. So definitely be careful with that. But we see what the NAM shows after this, and you can see we still see a lot of storm cells that are trying to kind of follow up with these with this big line of storms stretching all the way from Minnesota down to Iowa. This seems to me more like a embedded supercell line of storms, if that makes sense. I think you're probably going to get damaged wind gusts and isolated large hail within this line of storms. But back here, if you get any supercell activity, all right, if they follow up with this line of storms, we're gonna have to see if this line is gonna kill the environment. But if it does, then I think that these storms won't be as big of a problem. As you can see, they really don't look as intense as what we're talking about here in Minnesota. But I mean, you're getting to the dinner time and overnight hours of tonight. Look at eastern Minnesota and into north central sections of Iowa. This looks very concerning to me, as we could really be talking about a big time damage wind threat. We could be talking about 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts, potentially even up to 80 miles per hour in some spots. So big time severe damage wind threat, definitely possible with this. You see these pink shades out here in the northern Iowa. All right, this also looks to me like we could have some very large hail. Okay, so the hail threat is definitely going to be elevated today, and I really do think that we could definitely get some damaging large hailstones out in some of these areas. Now look down here into Kansas. As you can see, we do have a little cluster of storms that begins to kind of fire across the northwestern side of Kansas. This is all embedded with this storm. You've got a massive line of storms. If you notice, we'll take this through the rest of the animation. This whole line of storms is connected somewhat. All right, it's not very at this point, it's not very sharp, where you can basically tell right away that this is connected. But this is the same line of storms that's just going to kind of move together off to the east. We see what happens, and these storms do actually grow upscale, and they do get very strong. This one kind of bows out here. We get a big time bow echo segment stretching all the way from pretty much southwestern Iowa all the way up to portions of extreme western Wisconsin. This I would be very worried about for damage wind gusts. This looks to me like a pretty nasty QLCS. Very big though, and you see this little segment here where you kind of get two areas of strong outflow winds. This could definitely be a spot shown by the NAM where possible rotation could develop. Whenever you get kind of I don't know how you call it, but whenever you get kind of like um I really don't know how to call it, but you see how you get a little spot here that's in between two areas of strong outflow winds. Outflow winds meaning that you've got winds that are pushing the storm outward, if that makes sense. See, you get a little spot there where you get a tiny bit of potentially inflow winds. That could definitely start up some rotation. So if that's shown by the NAM, that is a sign that we could definitely have an isolated tornado threat if this line were to develop. This would definitely increase the tornado threat for sections of western Wisconsin. So I would be aware for you guys about 9, 10, 11 p.m. tonight. Very possible to see an isolated tornado threat with that, but very sharp contrast here. Very intense damage wind gust line, definitely 60 to 70 mile an hour winds, definitely possible with that. Even if this grows upscale enough, we could definitely get some gust fronts to develop, and that's only for the strongest of scenarios. Now, this would be very bad. This meaning that this would probably knock out a lot of power, because remember, this area has been hit over and over again by storms. I know Wisconsin. I think has over 100,000 customers without power at the time of recording this video. It's either Wisconsin or Michigan, but just to kind of give you a sense of what kind of area these storms are going to be going into, this area has been absolutely rocked by severe weather. So if this were to play out, this would be very bad for power issues, as this entire area has been just rocked by severe weather. But even down here into Kansas, look at this big time cluster of storms. This looks severe to me. If you're in southwestern Kansas, I would definitely be aware. I know you guys are usually behind the dry line when you get these springtime events, but it's summer, so you're gonna get definitely that potential for some strong severe storms. I would be on the lookout for some damage wind gusts and some isolated large hail, but this looks very concerning to me. If you're in Iowa, Wisconsin, or Minnesota, I would be on the lookout for very intense damage wind gusts. Obviously, this could be very different from what we're going to see, but if this were to happen, this would be a very bad thing to happen. So I would say that this could definitely be one of the worst case scenarios shown by the NAM here. And we take this out to midnight. This begins to fall apart, but it still does end up, kind of moving its way to the east. Very slow moving, I will say. It takes quite a few hours to get this thing all the way out to extreme sections of northwestern Illinois. But by the time we get to, after midnight, this really starts to fall apart. You don't see that sharp contrast anymore. Looks to me like some just strongest severe storms out into sections of northwestern Missouri. All right, I would be surprised if these were even severe. So, possibly You could wake up 4 or 5 a.m. to some loud thunder, some lightning, some heavy rainfall. Nothing like that. Nothing too crazy. Nothing other than that. Same thing for you guys out here in the Oklahoma Panhandle, even into sections of southern Kansas. Really, just some strong thunderstorms, some lightning, some wind, some rain. Nothing. Once again, nothing too crazy. The potential for severe storms after midnight is very low, but I think that there is still a slight potential for some strong to damage wind gusts across sections of southern Wisconsin into extreme northern Illinois. It's certainly possible for that, but the atmosphere is just going to be died down. It's really not going to be anything too crazy. So pretty much after midnight is when things are really going to calm down. I mean, look at this. You can see here's 11 p.m. Storm still looking pretty strong. Look at this massive bow echo segment here stretching across sections of western Wisconsin. Now look at after midnight. Boom. These storms just begin to die out and they kind of just fizzle out as we get into the morning hours of tomorrow morning. So once again, I mean, I really do think that the upper Midwest is going to experience the strongest of storms. Definitely an isolated tornado threat. Whenever you get kind of a spot where you get sudden inflow winds here, I mean, you could have inflow winds that are going to try and push into this big bow echo segment. That's why you don't have a huge line of storms that looks like a massive derecho. All right, because we're gonna get inflow winds that's gonna try and kind of uh, go against outflow winds. And basically, what happens when you put those two things together is you simply get rotation. So isolated tornadoes are definitely possible if we do get a line of storms. So I will be watching the radar very closely today to see what happens. But just two different scenarios that are possible where we could definitely get tornadoes, widespread tornadoes, or we could definitely get a few tornadoes, just not that many. All right, there's two different scenarios that could definitely play out. So we look at the significant tornado parameter. This is going to help us kind of look at which area could potentially have the highest chance of seeing a tornado and potentially even a significant tornado, just shown by model guidance. So we take this out here from the HRRR, and boom, you start to see some areas out here into sections of northern Minnesota getting up to about a 4. That is halfway up the scale. So already seeing widespread, 0 to 1 here on the significant tornado parameter. So nothing too crazy, not a huge signal, but the signal is there for a brief spin up tornado out here across sections of southern Minnesota and northern Iowa. So not a huge threat. But look at what's going on up here in northwestern Minnesota. Now, this is interesting because I don't think we're going to get exactly supercells to fire across this region. I think that what we're going to see is a damaged wind gust line. But I mean, my gut feeling is telling me that we're probably going to get some winds that are going to start to, bring inflow into the storms, and I do think that could definitely spin up some rotation. I could be wrong. Could definitely get some supercells, which we will take a look at the supercell composite parameter in a minute to take a look at the possibility for supercells. But I mean, we don't get over a 4, so about halfway up the scale at max, and we see what happens as we play this out. And we see just a lot of isolated spots of getting up to about a 4, getting up to a 3, something like that. Just flashed a 4.8, 5.2. So a little bit higher up on the scale than I first expected. So, I mean, there it is. I mean, that's the northern side of the storm. That's the northern side of the kind of train of storms, if you will. That's where we have the 5% risk. So anywhere in here, it's very possible that some areas along this line of storms is definitely going to have some rotation, and it could just be embedded supercells. I think that's what we're probably going to see. Just thinking about what we saw in the NAM. If you look at the beginning hours of the NAM, because this is only 8 hours out from the 12Z HRRR. If you look at the NAM, these two will almost match up identically to the point where we will most likely get embedded supercells within a pretty long line of storms. I think that's what we're probably going to end up seeing. But we take a look at the threat for tornadoes across sections of western Wisconsin. That's with the embedded inflow winds that are kind of, with that line of storms that we saw stretching all the way from Wisconsin down to Iowa. All right, that does not bring up the significant tornado parameter too high as far as what the HRRR is showing, but does bring it up to a slightly elevated about 2 to a 3. So once again, nothing too crazy. But definitely the threat is there for some tornadoes, and some of these could be definitely strong, as we see getting up to a 5 on the significant tornado parameter for sections of northern Minnesota. So on the fly, I'm going to take a look at the high-res NAM and just see what it's showing right now, and boom, there you go. Look at this. much more widespread. So you see how it's like isolated spots. Like it's not like a huge like line of higher significant tornado parameters like readings. You get just isolated spots here, so that means that's more of like a signal to me as for supercell development. That's what you see on the HRRR. Now look at the NAM. This is the NAM, the high resolution NAM. This is the same data that we just looked at a little bit earlier. You see how this is more or less like a line rather than just isolated spots. This to me definitely shows the potential for embedded areas of inflow and rotation within that line of storms that could develop. So you see more of a widespread area getting up to about a 3 to a 4, and look at this, we're going to near a 5. So I think it's certainly possible the NAM showing that worst case scenario, because you're not only getting the line of 60 to 70 mile an hour wind gusts, but you're also getting embedded tornadoes for a pretty widespread area, even down here into western Wisconsin. So I would certainly watch out for that. But very interesting to see that. Yeah, I mean, that is definitely embedded with the line. You can even see the sharp contrast here between about a zero point 0.6 and a 0 on the significant tornado parameter. That, believe it or not, that is definitely the line of storms that we're watching. This is the area of influence that's kind of making this thing bend. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the setup that we're seeing here. So all in all, I mean, just a very potential day for severe weather. I mean, the ceiling is high. It's really just a matter of what's going to play out. We have pretty much two different scenarios that could play out, but it's really looking like we're going to get a damaged window line with potentially just embedded supercells or embedded areas of rotation and inflow. All right, so we look at the CAPE levels here just to kind of give you guys a sense of what the environment's looking like for these storms. As you can see, CAPE levels in the as we get into the late afternoon or I guess this would be the late morning and early afternoon hours. You can see CAPE levels quickly rise to about 2 to 3,000 joules per kilograms, with the highest areas of CAPE getting up to 4,000 to 4,500 joules per kilograms CAPE. That is very, very high. It's nothing that's ridiculous, but it is very, very high. Very high CAPE levels out here in the sections of northern Iowa and southern Minnesota. That's why I was worried about the supercells that the NAM was showing potentially getting started out here into Nebraska, because if they do end up maturing and growing, and if we do end up getting supercells that enter sections of southern Minnesota and Iowa, that would be bad because we do have super high CAPE levels out here. So anything is possible whenever you get a storm out here with 4,500 joules per kilograms of CAPE. So kind of just to give you guys once again a sense of the environment that these storms are going to be entering. But you can see that even as we get into 8 to 9 p.m., the highest of CAPE levels barely getting up to 3,000, really widespread, just 2 to 3,000 joules per kilogram. So by 8 p.m., things should really start dying down, and then obviously all this energy will be kind of cut off by this this big time storm system. So really nothing too crazy after midnight once again, but definitely the potential for some tornadoes, some brief to potentially strong tornadoes, certainly possible out here in Minnesota. I would really watch out for this area the most because you have very high CAPE levels in there, and you have very high instability as well. So we take a look quickly at the supercell composite. This is the parameter that we take a look at for kind of just the potential for supercells. And as you can see, this to me looks okay. I think this to me looks definitely like embedded supercells within a line of storms. Look how widespread this is. You never usually see widespread you usually never see widespread supercell composite with a just a round of supercells. All right, this just basically what I'm trying to say is that whenever you see such a widespread uptick on the supercell composite parameter, that usually means that you're going to get supercells embedded with a line of storms. And that's exactly what we're seeing here across sections of Minnesota. A lot of areas in the orange, you're getting up to about a 5. So that's pretty much, that's a good amount up the scale. So basically just showing you a signal, a weak to moderate signal here for some potential embedded supercells within a line of storms. That's kind of what this kind of is, what kind of a sense that this is giving me. But you see that little pocket of inflow winds that we saw? This is that same exact signal, and it is showing up here on the supercell composite. So this basically can show us areas of rotation that we can kind of pick out from what the high res NAM is showing. And there you go, you get up to about a 4 to a 7 when you get in the orange shade. So I would watch out if you're in southern Minnesota. Once again, sections of central and northern Iowa, and then extreme western Wisconsin, like that. That's five. I think it's certainly possible you're going to get embedded tornadoes. I think we could get a few, and maybe one or two of them could be strong. You never know. So, just a big time setup for this line of storms, and then obviously after midnight, nothing crazy. But you look at the SPC. Today's SPC did get upgraded just now to an enhanced risk. It's level 3 to 5 risk here going out for the Minneapolis metro area. All right, you can see right smack dab in the middle of that enhanced risk. You got Minneapolis, Minnesota. You got Minneapolis, St. Paul, Bloomington, Plymouth, and Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. So, the fact that we did get upgraded last minute to another enhanced risk, which we saw yesterday, and yesterday we had 3 PDS tornado warnings yesterday across sections of the Dakotas. That this is pretty much the exact same thing from the SPC that we're seeing, where we have a slight risk in place with that 5% tornado threat, and then at the last minute we get upgraded to an enhanced risk because the forecasters are noticing that the environment is looking more and more favorable for tornadoes. That's exactly what we just saw here, where we do have that enhanced risk in sections of east central Minnesota. We do have another slight risk that's extending for the surrounding areas here, going into northern Iowa. You got sections of far western Wisconsin, and then southern and eastern Minnesota as well. That's level 2 out of 5 risk. And as you can see, this is driven off by a 5% tornado threat. Notice how it's a little bit more broad than the enhanced risk, a little bit further north, which is interesting. But this does go into extreme western Wisconsin, just a sliver of Wisconsin in there. So be careful, all right? We had, once again, PDS tornadoes yesterday. If you don't know what PDS means, particularly dangerous situation. All right, you very rarely see those. That kind of the PDS tag on tornado warnings. That just means that there is a particularly dangerous situation tornado, a strong, damaging, and potentially destructive tornado on the ground. Destructive usually is meant for tornado emergencies, but I don't think we're going to see any of them today. We barely even see tornado emergency, but just want to give you guys the sense of what can actually happen with this setup. So if you're in the red shade, you've got a 5% tornado threat that's going out for sections of central Minnesota. Surrounding areas of that, you have the 2%. Notice how it's, once again, farther north. So it seems like Minnesota's going to be mostly under the gun for tornadoes, but sections of northern Iowa and western Wisconsin are also certainly under the threat for tornadoes as well. So you look at the wind threat for today, we do have a 30% chance. That is a huge signal that we're going to get a QLCS, big time damage wind gust line potential. That is farther off to the east. So this is a signal that's kind of just screaming at us, saying that we're going to get a damage wind gust line. And you see the tornado threat pretty much overlaps with it. That means that you're going to get embedded tornadoes. Or what you could see is you could end up having tornadoes form off of the storms that begin to fire across sections of Minnesota prior to the formation of the line. Now, you usually see that in more organized thunderstorm events, but that could definitely happen with this event. I mean, it is a pretty organized storm system, so you never know. But 30% chance in the red shade, same area as the enhanced risk. Got a 15% in the slight risk area. That's in the yellow shade, and then a 5% for the surrounding areas of that. Notice how that does go all the way down to southwest Kansas. Same thing for the marginal risk there, so watch out for that. One thing to also mention is we do have another slight risk out here for sections of central PA down into far western Maryland and northern Virginia. All right, that is for the same area that is currently under the flood watch that we talked about earlier in the video. So once again, just another area of severe weather to talk about. That's mostly driven off by a wind risk. You got a 15% damage wind threat with that, and then 5% for the surrounding areas. And then for today's hail threat, it's 15% for the Minnesota and Iowa threat, but it's only 5% for the Mid-Atlantic threat, so you don't really need to worry about damaging large hail with that. But that's going to be pretty much it for today's severe weather event. And just to take a look at the day 2 outlook, this is for tomorrow. We do have another slight risk. It's very small, though. We don't have any crazy tornado threat, but we do have a 2% risk, so just watch out for that. Isolated across the Great Lakes in the Detroit area and points north. Got another 15% damage wind threat in the yellow shade, and then in the hail threat, you have a pretty large 5% risk. So, for the last part of the update, this is something that I've been looking forward to seeing for so long, guys. We finally are getting into that late summer, early fall pattern, all right? We are expecting a big blast of cold air to come down from Canada, and boom. Look at the eastern United States. You have a below spot of temperatures. All right, we're expecting not chilly temperatures, but just that nice 70 degree temperatures. No sticky, muggy 90 degree, 100 degree stuff. You've got below average temperatures. This is going to stay with us for quite a while. So, very nice pattern that we're going to get used to by the time that last storm system moves through. All right, so now it's the Western United States' turn to start to bake. You have a huge above average spot here for the Northwest. Look at the Pacific Northwest, 90 to 100% chance of seeing above average temperatures. That might be an 80 to 90, but very high chance of seeing above average temperatures. It's the kind of the United States split in two. All right, the western half of the United States, you're going to see big time above average temperatures, big time high pressure there. And then look at us in the eastern United States getting in on some big time below average temperatures. Look at New England. New England out here getting in on a 60 to 70% chance of seeing below average temperatures. So big time chance for getting in on some of that early fall, late summer kind of air. Just beautiful air, very comfortable air. So stuff to look forward to. This is going out for September 3rd to the 7th. That was actually issued yesterday. So brand new information that we've got from the Climate Prediction Center. So just something that is something to look forward to, and just it's great to see that our weather pattern is finally getting to a point where we can actually be comfortable in the temperatures and just the humidity levels. Nothing too crazy. So to take a look at the GFS, this does show us our temperature anomalies. We haven't looked at this. I will say I haven't looked at this since winter of last year. So it's been a long time since we looked at this. But as you can see, this is our cold front that's coming in. We also do have another pocket of cold air that's going to start coming down from Canada, pushing into the northeast. That's going to kind of meet up with this big area of cold air. This is the setup that I was talking about. You've got cold, dry air coming in from the west that's pushing this storm off to the east. This is your low pressure, and you've got your storm system right here, and then you've got your big time heat dome and your warm air that's kind of surging into this area. That's the setup that we've got now. But this is going to look 100% different by the time we get into next week. Look what happens. We get into the 30th, and boom! Look at that. This is the 30th into the 31st. Look at the Gulf Coast. Big time below average temperatures. Got 8 to 12 degrees below average. Click for sunning just to take a look at what the temperatures are here. Look at that, 74 degree temperatures. You're going from like 90 to 100 degrees to 74 degrees. That is nice. All right, it's gonna feel nice for a point. And boom, look at this, September 1st. We're finally starting to enter that time frame with that below average temperatures. This is the pattern we've been waiting for. Look at this, September 2nd, we've got a huge air mass of cold air that's exploding into the north central United States. All of a sudden, it's an outbreak of cold air, just beautiful air that's coming down here from Canada. You've got the west baking, and here's that above average spot just noted from the Climate Prediction Center. There it is. You're getting 8 to 12, some spots of up to 16 degrees above average for the Pacific Northwest. Look at Oregon and Washington State. Look at that. Take a look at sounding there. 78 degrees, but that's up in the mountains. So just big time above average temperatures. Wow, look at Canada up here. Just want to take a look at this. This is you're getting close to 16 to 20 degrees above average. So huge difference in your temperatures. Look, 90 degree temperatures up here, pretty far north into Canada. That is very surprising to see, considering that it's September 2nd. But look at the panhandle of Texas, western Texas. Look at this low average spot over here again in the 60s. Wow. So really nice cold air. It's going to stay with us for a while. Look at the Central Plains. Little, spot of below average temperatures here. It's going to stay with you guys for a while. Man, you're going to have a high of 60, of like mid 60s. So really nice temperatures coming down. And there is a signal for another big air mass to come down later into September. This is just at the end of the time frame that the Climate Prediction Center gave us. We still seem to be entering the same pattern with another cold shot coming down, and this one looks potentially even stronger. Look at this. We're getting down to 16 degrees in some spots below average, almost 20 degrees. So very nice cold air coming down. This is going to be maybe the nicest feeling time of the year that you're going to get out here. I just wanted to show you guys the 60 GFS from yesterday. This is what got me excited yesterday. I saw this. Look what's going to come down here, right here. Look at that. that is a huge air mass that is towards the mid part of September. Just a really nice cold front that's going to come down. I think we're going to enter a pattern that is going to be much more unfavorable for severe weather, but more favorable for nice, cooler conditions. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you for coming to watch. We'll see you guys in the next video. So I appreciate all of you that came to watch this video. Please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Stay safe out there. Just got to get through this one last round of severe weather, and then we'll start to talk about the cooler air that's going to come in behind this thing. So, stay safe out there. Turn around, don't drown if you're in a flooding risk. And so if if you have any questions or concerns, please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.